Leningrad, home to the Soviet Union's greatest art treasures. We'll visit the famous Winter Palace and the Hermitage Museum, cruise the Rhine River in Germany, and stop over in a town known for its legend of the Lorelei.
Hi, I'm Jake de Boer and welcome to the Travel Magazine. We begin our European tour in Austria's capital, Vienna, known around the world as the City of Music.
Vienna is one of Europe's great cultural centers. With its brilliant musical heritage and world-class art, it has a vibrancy more festive than that of many European capitals.
Heidi, there's so many landmarks in the city of Vienna. Where does one begin?
The best thing is, first of all, you're going to see the Ring Street. There you can see many landmarks. For example, you can see the Opera House, and you can see the Museum of Fine Arts, you can see the Hofburg, the Parliament, and so on. And the Ring Street was built in the end, in the second half of the last century. It lasted 54 years to build the Ring Street with all the famous buildings. And Emperor Francis Joseph ordered to demolish the old fortification and to build the famous Ring Street. But it's very nice if you take a carriage, you know, and to see the old city, the old narrow streets, to see the pedestrian zone. You can see a lot if you look up and admire the inner city.
The Opera House, there's quite a story behind it, I understand.
Yeah, the Opera House, nowadays everybody likes the Opera House very much. But when it was built, the Viennese did not like it. And the emperor also, he did not like the opera house. And so one of the architects committed suicide and the other one died of a broken heart.
The buildings along Vienna's famous Ringstrasse are an eclectic array from classical Greek to Art Nouveau. The Ringstrasse brings us downtown to Austria's parliament. It's a Greek revival building completed in 1883. One of the highlights on the Ringstrasse is St. Stephen's, a magnificent Gothic cathedral.
There is another big church on the Ringstrasse, which looks like a medieval cathedral, but which is only a little bit more than 100 years old, and was built on the very spot where an assassination attack had been attempted on Emperor Franz Joseph. And it was built on the very spot after his younger brother, Maximilian, the later Emperor of Mexico, had raised the funds for its construction. And the architect, by the way, was only 27 years old when he was commissioned with votive church. And there is yet another one, very beautiful one of the biggest Baroque churches in Austria, and that's St. Charles's Church. St. Charles's, which was built at about the same time as St. Paul's Cathedral in London, by the same architect who built Schönbrunn Palace. Coffee houses are places where you feel at home without being at home. And you can go there, chat with friends, conduct your business, write letters, give a rest to your tired feet, or read papers and stay there for half a day or even a day, simply over a cup of coffee.
During her golden age, Vienna attracted the world's greatest composers and provided a source of inspiration for a brilliant repertory of classical music. One of Vienna's most popular composers is Johann Strauss.
Johann Strauss wrote a different kind of music. He is not associated with the Vienna classical period, but with waltz music, and he's called the king of waltz. And he wrote a couple of hundred of waltzes, which you can still hear here in Vienna, played either at the balls, during the ball season, or you can go to the Johann Strauss steamboat on the Danube Canal and listen to Strauss music there. They have afternoon and evening performances of Strauss music there.
The Blue Danube Ferry is a popular spot with tourists. There's a classical Viennese dining along with a performance of Strauss's most popular works.
Beethoven was strongly influenced by Vienna, or the Vienna woods for that matter.
Well, Beethoven was one of those composers who were not born in Vienna, but who came from outside. He came from Germany. And the first time he came here to Vienna, he was a lad of 17 to take piano lessons with Mozart. And he would live either on the fringe of the city or in the suburbs or somewhere in the Vienna woods, where he would walk, where he would go for walks, and where he would let himself be inspired by nature. And it was out at the former suburb of Heiligenstadt, where he would take walks, strolls along the Schreiber, Bach, and Little Creek, and it was there where he wrote part of his Pastorale.
Vienna is as famous for its Heurigen as it is for its music.
It's the new wine, and it's the place where the new wine is sold. And there are many of these places here in the outskirts of Vienna. And the most famous area where you would go for a Heurigen is called Grinzing. And you may also hear music there. So it's not only the wine you can enjoy there, but also the music. And it's usually zither music or bass or accordion. And they play these traditional Viennese songs which everybody enjoys.
Next up on the Travel Magazine, a traditional Rhine River cruise. For centuries, the Rhine River has been one of Germany's main transportation systems. The Rhine originates in Switzerland's glaciers and winds its way through Germany and Holland, where it finally reaches the North Sea. The 150-year-old Rhine River cruise is one of the most popular tourist attractions in Germany. If you decide to take the cruise, you have a couple of options. You can go for 1 day or even 4 or 5 days. And in the evening, you can get off at one of the many charming villages that line the river banks. Exploring the Rhine Valley, the cruise offers a variety of things to see and do. And at least for part of the journey, all you have to do is sit back and enjoy the sights. This is the Rhine of legend, with a flowing history that dates back to Roman times. The towns are the same as those that prospered during the Middle Ages, and with every new twist of the river, there's a ruin of a castle, a cathedral, or a vineyard. Rhine cruises head up and down the river between Koblenz and Mainz several times a day, with stops in all or most of the small villages.
What is the story behind Rhine cruises, and how did they get started?
started in 1826, and we are the first passenger shipping company on the Rhine, and we had the first pedal steamer on the Rhine also in service. And since this time, we were a company which handled tourism on the Rhine, and we had many passengers from all over the world. In the 160 years, our company is now working here on the Rhine. And this is a very interesting way to see the Rhine by a floating hotel on our first-class Rhine cruises. Included is traffic on the traveling on the Rhine, accommodation on the boat, full food, 3 or 4 meals per day, and accommodation in 2 berth outside cabins, always big windows. So we have always a good sight to the shores on both sides.
What happens in the evening? Do the boats come into shore?
Yes, the boat is mooring on the shore. Therefore, the people can see the landscape during the daylight. And on the evenings, they can make shore excursions, sightseeing tours on the villages and in the towns. The ship is mooring for the night. And on board, we make also dancing activities and folklore dancing and so on.
The Rhine villages are some of the most charming and historical that you'll find in Germany. St. Gorshausen dates back to the 12th century. It is most famous for its legend of the Lorelei.
The town is very well known for the legend, the Lorelei. Can you tell us about it?
You see, there are different legends about the Lorelei, and I'll tell you that what is most told and most known. It says that is a young lady, very, very good looking, with golden hair, and she is combing this golden hair with a golden comb, sitting up on the rock of the Lorelei, and she is lovesick, and she sings a wonderful, sad melody. And all skippers and the ships, they come by, they look up and listen to this melody and are fascinated by this young lady combing her hair. And they don't care anymore for the currents which are in the Rhine River, and there are many and very dangerous. And so the currents take the ships down and the skippers die.
Apart from a cruise, if you're interested in combining a train ride with a short ferry trip, there are interchangeable tickets. Whatever you decide on, exploring the Rhine Valley has become one of the most popular ways of seeing this part of the country.
What did you like most about it?
Probably the relaxation, the scenery. We were pampered. We come out of a very busy time. It was ideal to unwind.
So smooth. Everybody was so nice. The food was absolutely excellent. I just didn't want to get off.
Well, I think we got a nice history lesson along the way.
There was entertainment on the ship, and then you could go ashore. Whatever you wanted to do was excellent.
You couldn't ask for it any better. You really couldn't. It was immaculate. The rooms were very, very clean, and the people on the boat were very nice.
And the
very
quality of the food?
Oh,
excellent.
It was excellent.
Excellent.
It really was.
But you looked very happy.
I am. I'm on holiday and I'm having a great time.
Next up on the travel magazine, Leningrad, home to the Soviet Union's greatest art treasures.
Hello, I'm Matthew Cope. Of all the cities in the USSR, Leningrad is probably the most accessible to visitors and tourists. And it's certainly the most beautiful, with a network of canals and bridges linking the islands on which it's built. Behind me is the Winter Palace, just one of the treasures in this historic and fascinating place. Much of what is known outside the Soviet Union about Russian culture has come from this city. It was the birthplace of Russia's modern literature, the setting for the themes of Pushkin and Gogol. It was from here that Russian ballet swept the West at the turn of the century. To appreciate Leningrad, one has to look for these links, but there's plenty more to be enjoyed. A boat tour along the Neva River is one of the best introductions to Leningrad.
The Neva River, it's the main thoroughfare of Leningrad. You know, it's a very short one. It's only probably 74 kilometers long, but it's very important for the city because it's the main waterway of the city, and in the past it was the very important trade route from the north to the south. You know, the first idea of Peter the Great was to build our city like Venice. That's why in many books it's mentioned like the northern Venice. And our city was situated on more than 100 islands. And even nowadays it stands on 42 islands, you know. It's the city on the water.
Linking the islands along the Neva River are over 400 bridges, each varied in style and design, including some interesting drawbridges.
I think that it's probably the only city in the Soviet Union which was built according to the very strict plan. It was the idea of Peter the Great to build it like, you know, the capital of Russia, and, you know, his idea was to build one of the beautiful cities in Europe which could rival and even excel some cities in Europe.
One of Leningrad's main attractions can be reached by hydrofoil. It's called Petrovorets. This is a town of palaces, fountains, and parks. It was once the summer residence of Peter the Great. Today, it's one of the city's great historical and artistic sites.
Versailles set as a model for this place. You know, Peter I visited many foreign countries, and he was received by Louis XV. And when he came back to Russia, he couldn't stop thinking to create something which could rival and even excel Versailles. So Versailles set as a model for this place. That's why there are so many fountains, fountain displays. You know, there are 146 fountains. And, you know, there are many palaces which were restored after the Second World War. The best palace is the Grand Palace, which just is situated on the top of the hill, just in front of the Gulf of Finland. There are two parks, the lower park and the upper park. The lower park is more than 100 hectares. The upper park is about 15 hectares. And all the parks are decorated with beautiful fountains and statues especially commissioned in Italy.
This is really wonderful. The fountains, it's just unbelievable. The different type of fountains, and it's kind of amazing that when it was built back in, what is 18th century, whatever, or 1800s, that they were able to do that.
It reminds me of Versailles, but on a smaller, more intimate scale. You can walk in the forest, and I think the gold of the trees matches the gold of the fountains, and it's very lovely.
A good starting point for exploring Leningrad is the Palace Square. It's here you'll find a series of buildings which make up the museum complex known as the State Hermitage.
The Hermitage takes up 5 buildings. You know, it consists of 5 buildings, which include Winter Palace, Small Hermitage, New Hermitage, Old Hermitage, and Theatre of Catherine II, you see? And all these buildings, they're connected by roofed passages, in this way forming one single unit, which is known like the Hermitage. You see, the Winter Palace was built by the very renowned architect Rastrelli, and it happened to be during the reign of Elizabeth, so it was completed in 1762, and it was the residence of the Russian Tsars till the revolution.
Leningrad's finest art collections are kept in the Hermitage. The setting inside the museum is magnificent and lavish, a perfect backdrop to the treasures you can find there.
This collection was started by Catherine II. She bought a very small collection which consisted of 225 paintings from the Prussian merchant Gatsowski, and it became a core of this collection. After the revolution, many private collections were nationalized, and it's still growing because there are some departments, and the exhibition of these departments, it's based on the archaeological excavations made in the south of our country, in Siberia, in the Far East, in all parts of Russia. You know, it includes 15,000 paintings, 12,000 pieces of sculpture. It's split in 6 departments. Antique department is the largest in the Soviet Union, and Western European department is the richest in the Soviet Union. It's a real treasury of art.
I think it's one of the best art museums I've ever been to, because not only are you looking at beautiful art, but you're also, the surroundings are just superb.
For all its cultural brilliance, Leningrad, or St. Petersburg as it used to be called, was born in battle, the battles of the Northern Wars. It was here that it all began, at the Peter and Paul Fortress.
It's an inseparable part of our history because the city started exactly under protection of that fortress. In the 18th century, this fortress was turned into the political prison, so it's very interesting from historical point of view. And the last prisoners of this fortress became the members of the provisional government arrested in the Winter Palace.
There are some beautiful cathedrals and churches throughout the city. This is one of the most impressive, St. Isaac's. Increasing numbers of churches in the Soviet Union are actually functioning as churches. You can attend services here at the Cathedral of St. Nicholas, a Baroque treasure.
You know, we are proud of our city, and I'm proud of Leningrad because it's the city of culture, where almost all outstanding people of Russia lived. Dostoevsky, Turgenev, the very great poet Pushkin, Tchaikovsky, Glinka, Rimsky-Korsakov. You know, so this city is of great beauty. It's marvelous.
Even a short trip, just a couple of days in Leningrad, can be a rewarding and enriching experience. I'm Matthew Cope for the Travel Magazine. Hope you can join us next time.